Announcing Bill's betrothed isn't going to sit well with the old dad. Can Archie rally round and lend a hand? P.G. Wodehouse, today on the Classic Tales podcast. Welcome to the Classic Tales podcast. Thank you for listening. We are in the final stages of developing the audiobook library card. The database is now complete, and we are working out the final kinks of the product now. Go to audiobooklibrarycard.com for the latest updates. It will be an all-you-can-hear, streamable plan for the entire Classic Tales library. That's right, you'll be able to stream or download all you want. We are also developing a perks program, where businesses can offer the audiobook library card as a perk or benefit to their clients, employees, students, etc. One monthly subscription will give complete download and streaming access to all their people, no limits. The perks program will start at an introductory price of $45.99 a month. Think of the things you could do. For those who already support us at the $10 a month rate or more, your subscription will be automatically upgraded to the audiobook library card. If you want instant access when we launch, upgrade your subscription to the $10 a month mark today. And now, Indiscretions of Archie, Part 6 of 8, by P.G. Wodehouse. Chapter 16. Archie Accepts a Situation. Lucille moved her wrist slowly round, the better to examine the new bracelet. "You really are an angel, Angel," she murmured. "Like it?" said Archie complacently. "Like it? Why, it's gorgeous. It must have cost a fortune." "Oh, nothing to speak of. Just a few hard-earned pieces of 8, just a few doubloons from the old oak chest." "But I didn't know there were any doubloons in the old oak chest." "Well, as a matter of fact," admitted Archie, "at one point in the proceedings there weren't. But an aunt of mine in England, peace be on her head, happened to send me a chunk of the necessary at what you might call the psychological moment." "And you spent it all on a birthday present for me, Archie?" Lucille gazed at her husband adoringly. "Archie, do you know what I think?" "What?" "You're the perfect man." "No, really? What-ho?" "Yes," said Lucille firmly. "I've long suspected it, and now I know. I don't think there's anybody like you in the world." Archie patted her hand. "It's a rummy thing," he observed, "but your father said almost exactly that to me only yesterday. Only, I don't fancy he meant the same as you. To be absolutely frank, his exact expression was that he thanked God there were only one of me." A troubled look came into Lucille's grey eyes. "It's a shame about Father. I do wish he appreciated you. But you mustn't be too hard on him." "Me?" said Archie. "Hard on your father? Well, dash it all, I don't think I treat him with what you might call actual brutality, what? I mean to say, my whole idea is rather to keep out of the old lad's way and curl up in a ball if I can't dodge him. I'd just as soon be hard on a stampeding elephant. I wouldn't for the world say anything derogatory, as it were, to your jolly old pater, but there is no getting away from the fact that he's by way of being one of our leading man-eating fishes. It would be idle to deny that he considers that you let down the poor old name of Brewster a bit, when you brought me in and laid me on the mat. Anyone would be lucky to get you for a son-in-law, precious. I fear me, light of my life, the dad doesn't see eye to eye with you on that point. No, every time I get a hold of a daisy, I give him another chance, but it always works out that he loves me not. You must make allowances for him, darling. Righto. But I hope devoutly that he doesn't catch me at it. I've a sort of idea that if the old dad discovered that I was making allowances for him, he would have from 10 to 15 fits. He's worried just now, you know. I didn't know. He doesn't confide in me much. He's worried about that waiter. What waiter, Queen of my Soul? A man called Salvatore. Father dismissed him some time ago. Salvatore? Probably you don't remember him. He used to wait on this table. Why, And Father dismissed him, apparently, and now there's all sorts of trouble. You see, Father wants to build this new hotel of his, and he thought he'd got the site and everything and could start building right away, and now he finds that this man Salvatore's mother owns a little newspaper and tobacco shop right in the middle of the site, and there's no way of getting him out without buying the shop, and he won't sell. At least he's made his mother promise that she won't sell. A boy's best friend is his mother, said Archie approvingly. I had a sort of idea all along. So Father's in despair. Archie drew at his cigarette meditatively. I remember a chappie, a policeman he was, as a matter of fact, and incidentally a fairly pronounced blighter, remarking to me some time ago that you could trample on the poor man's face, but you mustn't be surprised if he bit you in the leg while you were doing it. Apparently this is what has happened to the old dad. I had a sort of idea all along that old friend Salvatore would come out strong in the end, if you only gave him time. Brainy sort of fellow, great pal of mine. Lucille's small face lightened. She gazed at Archie with proud affection. She felt that she ought to have known that he was the only one to solve this difficulty. You're wonderful, darling. Is he really a friend of yours? Absolutely. Many's the time he and I have chatted in this very grill room. Then it's all right. If you went to him and argued with him, he would agree to sell the shop, and Father would be happy. Think how grateful Father would be to you. It would make all the difference. Archie turned this over in his mind. Something in that, he agreed. It would make him see what a pet lambkin you really are. Well, said Archie, I'm bound to say that any scheme which what you might call culminates in your father regarding me as a pet lambkin ought to receive one's best attention. How much did he offer Salvatore for his shop? I don't know. There is Father. Call him over and ask him. Archie glanced over to where Mr. Brewster had sunk moodily into a chair at a neighbouring table. It was plain even at that distance that Daniel Brewster had his troubles, and was bearing them with an ill grace. He was scowling absently at the tablecloth. You call him, said Archie, having inspected his formidable relative. You know him better. Let's go over to him. They crossed the room. Lucille sat opposite her father. Archie draped himself over a chair in the background. Father, dear, said Lucille, Archie has got an idea. Archie? Said Mr. Brewster incredulously. This is me, said Archie, indicating himself with a spoon. The tall, distinguished-looking bird. What new fool thing is he up to now? It's a splendid idea, Father. He wants to help you over your new hotel. Wants to run it for me, I suppose. By Jove, said Archie, reflectively. That's not a bad scheme. I never thought of running an hotel. I shouldn't mind taking a stab at it. He has thought of a way of getting rid of Salvatore and his shop. For the first time, Mr. Brewster's interest in the conversation seemed to stir. He looked sharply at his son-in-law. He has he? He said. Archie balanced a roll on a fork and inserted a plate underneath. The roll bounded away into a corner. Sorry, said Archie. My fault, absolutely. I owe you a roll. I'll sign a bill for it. Oh, about this sportsman Salvatore, well, it's like this, you know. He and I are great pals. I've known him for years and years. At least it seems like years and years. Lou was suggesting that I seek him out in his lair and ensnare him with my diplomatic manner and superior brain power and what not. It was your idea, precious, said Lucille. Mr. Brewster was silent. Much as it went against the grain to have to admit it, there seemed to be something in this. What do you propose to do? Become a jolly old ambassador. How much did you offer the chappie? $3,000, twice as much as the place is worth. He's holding out on me for revenge. Ah, but how did you offer it to him, what? I mean to say, I bet you got your lawyer to write him a letter full of whereases, peradventures, and parties of the first part and so forth. No good, old companion. Don't call me old companion. All wrong, laddie. Nothing like it, dear heart. No good at all, friend of my youth. Take it from your Uncle Archibald. I'm a student of human nature, and I know a thing or two. That's not much, growled Mr. Brewster, who was finding his son-in-law's superior manner a little trying. Now don't interrupt, Father, said Lucille severely. Can't you see that Archie is going to be tremendously clever in a minute? He's got to show me. What you ought to do, said Archie, is to let me go and see him, taking the stuff in crackling bills. I'll roll them about on the table in front of him. That'll fetch him. He prodded Mr. Brewster encouragingly with the roll. I'll tell you what to do. Give me 3,000 of the best and crispest, and I'll undertake to buy that shop. It can't fail, laddie. Don't call me laddie, Mr. Brewster pondered. Very well, he said at last. I didn't know you had so much sense, he added grudgingly. Oh, positively, said Archie. Beneath a rugged exterior, I hide a brain like a buzzsaw. Sense, I exude it, laddie. I drip with it. There were moments during the ensuing days when Mr. Brewster permitted himself to hope, but more frequent were the moments when he told himself that a pronounced chump like his son-in-law could not fail somehow to make a mess of the negotiations. His relief, therefore, when Archie curveted into his private room and announced that he had succeeded, was great. You really managed to make that wop sell out? Archie brushed some papers off the desk with a careless gesture and seated himself on the vacant spot. Absolutely. I spoke to him as one old friend to another, sprayed the bills all over the place, and he sang a few bars from Rigoletto and signed on the dotted line. You're not such a fool as you look, owned Mr. Brewster. Archie scratched a match on the desk and lit a cigarette. It's a jolly little shop, he said. I took quite a fancy to it. Full of newspapers, don't you know, and cheap novels and some weird-looking sort of chocolates and cigars with the most fearfully attractive labels. I think I'll make a success of it. It's bang in the middle of a dashed good neighbourhood. One of these days, somebody will be building a big hotel round about there, and that'll help trade a lot. I look forward to ending my days on the other side of the counter with a full set of white whiskers and a skull-cap, beloved by everybody. Everybody will say, "Oh, you must patronize that quaint, delightful old blighter. He's quite a character." Mr. Brewster's air of grim satisfaction had given way to a look of discomfort, almost of alarm. He presumed his son-in-law was merely indulging in badinage, but even so his words were not soothing. "Well, I'm much obliged," he said. "That infernal shop was holding up everything. Now I can start building right away." Archie raised his eyebrows. "But my dear old top, I'm sorry to spoil your daydreams and stop you chasing rainbows and all that, but aren't you forgetting that the shop belongs to me? I don't at all know that I want to sell either." "I gave you the money to buy that shop." "And dashed generous of you it was, too," admitted Archie unreservedly. "It was the first money you ever gave me, and I shall always tell interviewers that it was you who founded my fortunes. Some day, when I'm the newspaper and tobacco shop king, I'll tell the world all about it in my autobiography." Mr. Brewster rose dangerously from his seat. "Do you think you can hold me up, you worm?" "Well," said Archie, "the way I look at it is this. Ever since we met, you've been after me to become one of the world's workers and earn a living for myself and what not, and now I see a way to repay you for your confidence and encouragement. You'll look me up sometimes at the good old shop, won't you?" He slid off the table and moved towards the door. "There won't be any formalities where you are concerned. You can sign bills for any reasonable amount any time you want a cigar or a stick of chocolate. Well, toodaloo." "Stop." "Now what?" "How much do you want for that damn shop?" "I don't want money. I want a job. If you are going to take my life work away from me, you ought to give me something else to do." "What job?" "You suggested it yourself the other day. I want to manage your new hotel." "Don't be a fool. What do you know about managing an hotel?" "Nothing. It will be your pleasing task to teach me the business while the shanty is being run up." There was a pause, while Mr. Brewster chewed 3 inches off a pen-holder. "Very well," he said at last. "Topping," said Archie. "I knew you'd see it. I'll study your methods, what? Adding some of my own, of course. You know, I've thought of one improvement on the Cosmopolis already." "Improvement on the Cosmopolis?" cried Mr. Brewster, gashed in his finest feelings. "Yes. There's one point where the old Cosmop slips up badly, and I'm going to see that it's corrected at my little shack. Customers will be entreated to leave their boots outside their doors at night and they'll find them cleaned in the morning. Well, pip, pip, I must be popping. Time is money, you know, with us businessmen. Chapter 17. Brother Bill's Romance. "Her eyes," said Bill Brewster, "are like, what's the word I want?" He looked across at Lucille and Archie. Lucille was leaning forward with an eager and interested face. Archie was leaning back with his fingertips together and his eyes closed. This was not the first time since their meeting in Beale's auction rooms that his brother-in-law had touched on the subject of the girl he had become engaged to marry during his trip to England. Indeed, Brother Bill had touched on very little else, and Archie, though of a sympathetic nature and fond of his young relative, was beginning to feel that he had heard all he wished to hear about Mabel Winchester. Lucille, on the other hand, was absorbed. Her brother's recital had thrilled her. "Like," said Bill, "like
stars?"
suggested Lucille. "Stars," said Bill gratefully. "Exactly the word. Twin stars, shining in a clear sky on a summer night. Her teeth are like, what shall I say?
Pearls?
Pearls! And her hair is a lovely brown like leaves in autumn. In fact," concluded Bill, slipping down from the heights with something of a jerk, "she's a corker. Isn't she, Archie?" Archie opened his eyes. "Quite right, old top," he said. "It was the only thing to do." "What the devil are you talking about?" demanded Bill coldly. He had been suspicious all along of Archie's statement that he could listen better with his eyes shut. "Eh? Oh, sorry. Thinking of something else." "You were asleep." No, positively and distinctly not. Frightfully interested and rapt and all that, only I didn't quite get what you said." "I said that Mabel was a corker." "Oh, absolutely, in every respect." "There!" Bill turned to Lucille triumphantly. "You hear that? And Archie has only seen her photograph. Wait till he sees her in the flesh."
"My dear old chap," said Archie, shocked. "Ladies present. I mean to say, what?"
"I'm afraid that Father will be the one you'll find it hard to convince." "Yes," admitted her brother gloomily.
"Your Maybelle sounds perfectly charming, but, well, you know what Father is. It is a pity she sings in the chorus."
"She hasn't much of a voice," argued Bill in extenuation.
"All the same."
Archie, the conversation having reached a topic on which he considered himself one of the greatest living authorities, to wit the unlovable disposition of his father-in-law, addressed the meeting as one who has a right to be heard.
"Lucille's absolutely right, old thing. Absolutely correcto. Your esteemed progenitor is a pretty tough nut, and it's no good trying to get away from it. And I'm sorry to have to say it, old bird, but if you come bounding in with part of the personnel of the ensemble on your arm and try to dig a father's blessing out of him, he's extremely apt to stab you in the gizzard."
"I wish," said Bill, annoyed, "you wouldn't talk as though Mabel were the ordinary kind of chorus girl. She's only on the stage because her mother's hard up, and she wants to educate her little brother."
"I say," said Archie, concerned, "take my tip, old top. In chatting the matter over with the pater, don't dwell too much on that aspect of the affair. I've been watching him closely, and it's about all he can stick, having to support me. If you ring in a mother and a little brother on him, he'll crack under the strain."
"Well, I've got to do something about it. Mabel will be over here in a week."
"Great Scott, you never told us that."
"Yes. She's going to be in the new Billington show, and naturally, she will expect to meet my family. I've told her all about you."
"Did you explain Father to her?" asked Lucille.
"Well, I just said she mustn't mind him, as his bark was worse than his bite."
"Well," said Archie, thoughtfully, "he hasn't bitten me yet, so you may be right. But you've got to admit that he's a bit of a barker." Lucille considered. "Really, Bill, I think your best plan would be to go straight to Father and tell him the whole thing. You don't want him to hear about it in a roundabout way."
"The trouble is that whenever I'm with Father, I can't think of anything to say."
Archie found himself envying his father-in-law this merciful dispensation of Providence. For where he was concerned, there had been no lack of eloquence on Bill's part. In the brief period in which he had known him, Bill had talked all the time, and always on the one topic. As unpromising a subject as the terraflaws was easily diverted by him into a discussion of the absent Mabel. "When I'm with Father," said Bill, "I sort of lose my nerve and yammer." "Dashed awkward," said Archie politely. He sat up suddenly. "I say, by Jove, I know what you want, old friend. Just thought of it." "A busy brain is never still," explained Lucille. "Saw it in the paper this morning, an advertisement of a book, don't you know?" "I've no time for reading." "You've got time for reading this one, laddie, for you can't afford to miss it. It's a what-do-you-call-it book. What I mean to say is, if you read it and take its tips to heart, it guarantees to make you a convincing talker. The advertisement says so. The advertisement's all about a chappie whose name I forget, whom everybody loved because he talked so well. And mark you, before he got hold of this book, The Personality That Wins was the name of it, if I remember rightly. He was known to all the lads in the office as Silent Samuel or something, or it may have been Tongue-Tied Thomas. Well, one day, he happened by good luck to blow in the necessary for the good old P that's W's, and now, whenever they want someone to go and talk Rockefeller or someone into lending them $1 million or so, they send for Samuel. And now they call him Sammy the Spellbinder, and fawn upon him pretty copiously and all that. How about it, old son? How do we go?" "What perfect nonsense," said Lucille. "I don't know," said Bill, plainly impressed. "There might be something in it." "Absolutely," said Archie. "I remember. It said, 'Talk convincingly, and no man will ever treat you with cold, unresponsive indifference.' Well, cold, unresponsive indifference is just what you don't want the pater to treat you with, isn't it? Or is it? Or isn't it, what? I mean, what?" "It sounds all right," said Bill. "It is all right," said Archie. "It's a scheme. I'll go farther. It's an egg." "The idea I had," said Bill, "was to see if I couldn't get Mabel a job in some straight comedy. That would take the curse off the thing a bit. Then I wouldn't have to dwell on the chorus end of the business, you see." "Much more sensible," said Lucille. "But what a deuce of a sweat," argued Archie. "I mean to say, having to pop round and nose about and all that." "Aren't you willing to take a little trouble for your stricken brother-in-law, Worm?" said Lucille severely. "Oh, absolutely. My idea was to get this book and coach the dear old chap. Rehearse him, don't you know. He could bone up the early chapters a bit, and then drift round and try his convincing talk on me." "Might be a good idea," said Bill reflectively. "Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do," said Lucille. "I'm going to get Bill to introduce me to his Mabel, and if she's as nice as he says she is, I'll go to Father and talk convincingly to him." "You're an ace," said Bill. "Absolutely," agreed Archie cordially. "My partner, what? All the same, we ought to keep the book as a second string, you know. I mean to say, you are a young and delicately nurtured girl, full of sensibility and shrinking what's-its-name and all that, and you know what the jolly old pater is. He might bark at you and put you out of action in the first round. Well, then, if anything like that happened, don't you see, we could unleash old Bill, the trained, silver-tongued expert, and let him have a shot. Personally, I'm all for the P the W's." "Me too," said Bill. Lucille looked at her watch. "Good gracious, it's nearly 1 o'clock. No." Archie heaved himself up from his chair. "Well, it's a shame to break up this feast of reason and flow of soul and all that, but if we don't leg it with some speed, we shall be late." "We're lunching at the Nicholsons'," explained Lucille to her brother. "I wish you were coming too." "Lunch." Bill shook his head with a kind of tolerant scorn. "Lunch means nothing to me these days. I've other things to think of besides food." He looked as spiritual as his rugged features would permit. "I haven't written to her yet today." "But dash it, old Scream, if she's going to be over here in a week, what's the good of writing? The letter would cross her." "I'm not mailing my letters to England," said Bill. "I'm keeping them for her to read when she arrives." "My sainted aunt," said Archie. Devotion like this was something beyond his outlook. Chapter 18. The Sausage Chappie. The Personality That Wins cost Archie $2 in cash and a lot of embarrassment when he asked for it at the store. To buy a treatise of that name would automatically seem to argue that you haven't a winning personality already, and Archie was at some pains to explain to the girl behind the counter that he wanted it for a friend. The girl seemed more interested in his English accent than in his explanation, and Archie was uncomfortably aware, as he receded, that she was practicing it in an undertone for the benefit of her colleagues and fellow workers. However, what is a little discomfort, if endured in friendship's name? He was proceeding up Broadway, after leaving the store, when he encountered Reggie Van Tool, who was drifting along in somnambulistic fashion near 39th Street. "Hello, Reggie, old thing," said Archie.
"Hello,"
said Reggie, a man of few words. "I've just been buying a book for Bill Brewster," went on Archie. "It appears that old Bill— What's the matter?" He broke off his recital abruptly. A sort of spasm had passed across his companion's features. The hand holding Archie's arm had tightened convulsively. One would have said that Reginald had received a shock. "It's nothing," said Reggie. "I'm all right now. I caught sight of that fellow's clothes rather suddenly. They shook me a bit. I'm all right now," he said bravely. Archie, following his friend's gaze, understood. Reggie Van Tool was never at his strongest in the morning, and he had a sensitive eye for clothes. He had been known to resign from clubs because members exceeded the bounds in the matter of soft shirts with dinner jackets, and the short, thick-set man who was standing just in front of them, in attitude of restful immobility, was certainly no dandy. His best friend could not have called him dapper. Take him for all in all, and on the hoof, he might have been posing as a model for a sketch of what the well-dressed man should not wear. In costume, as in most other things, it is best to take a definite line and stick to it. This man had obviously vacillated. His neck was swathed in a green scarf. He wore an evening dress coat, and his lower limbs were draped in a pair of tweed trousers built for a larger man. To the north he was bounded by a straw hat, to the south by brown shoes. Archie surveyed the man's back carefully. "Bit thick," he said sympathetically. "But of course, Broadway isn't Fifth Avenue. What I mean to say is bohemian license and what-not. Broadway's crammed with deuced brainy devils who don't care how they look. Probably this bird is a mastermind of some species." "All the same, man's no right to wear evening dress coat with tweed trousers." "Absolutely not. I see what you mean." At this point the sartorial offender turned. Seen from the front, he was even more unnerving. He appeared to possess no shirt, though this defect was offset by the fact that the tweed trousers fitted snugly under his arms. He was not a handsome man. At the best he could never have been that, and in the recent past he had managed to acquire a scar that ran from the corner of his mouth halfway across his cheek. Even when his face was in repose, he had an odd expression, and when, as he chanced to do now, he smiled, odd became a mild adjective, quite inadequate for purposes of description. It was not an unpleasant face, however, unquestionably genial indeed. There was something in it that had a quality of humorous appeal. Archie started. He stared at the man. Memory stirred. "Great Scott!" he cried. "It's the sausage chappie!" Reginald Van Tool gave a little moan. He was not used to this sort of thing. A sensitive young man as regarded scenes, Archie's behaviour unmanned him. For Archie, releasing his arm, had bounded forward and was shaking the other's hand warmly. "Well, well, well, my dear old chap! You must remember me, what? No? Yes?" The man with the scar seemed puzzled. He shuffled the brown shoes, patted the straw hat, and eyed Archie questioningly. "I don't seem to place you." Archie slapped the back of the evening dress coat. He linked his arm affectionately with that of the dress reformer. "We met outside Saint-Mihiel in the war. You gave me a bit of sausage. One of the most sporting events in history. Nobody but a real sportsman would have parted with a bit of sausage at that moment to a stranger. Never forgotten it, by Jove. Saved my life, absolutely. Hadn't chewed a morsel for 8 hours. Well, have you got anything on? I mean to say, you aren't booked for lunch or any rot of that species, are you? Fine. Then I move we all toddle off and get a bite somewhere." He squeezed the other's arm fondly. Fancy meeting you again like this. I've often wondered what became of you, but by Jove, I was forgetting. Dashed rude of me. My friend, Mr. Van Tool.
Reggie gulped. The longer he looked at it, the harder this man's costume was to bear. His eye passed shudderingly from the brown shoes to the tweed trousers to the green scarf, from the green scarf to the straw hat. "Sorry," he mumbled. "Just remembered. Important date. Late already. See you sometime." He melted away, a broken man. Archie was not sorry to see him go. Reggie was a good chap, but he would undoubtedly have been de trop at this reunion. "I vote we go to the Cosmopolis," he said, steering his newly found friend through the crowd. "The browsing and sluicing isn't bad there, and I can sign the bill, which is no small consideration nowadays." The sausage chappie chuckled amusedly. "I can't go to a place like the Cosmopolis, looking like this." Archie was a little embarrassed. "Oh, I don't know, don't you know?" he said. "Still, since you have brought the topic up, you did get the good old wardrobe a bit mixed this morning, what? I mean to say, you seem absent-mindedly, as it were, to have got hold of samples from a good number of your various suitings." "Suitings? How do you mean suitings? I haven't any suitings. What do you think I am, Vincent Astor? All I have is what I stand up in." Archie was shocked. The tragedy touched him. He himself had never had any money in his life, but somehow he had always seemed to manage to have plenty of clothes. How this was, he could not say. He had always had a vague sort of idea that tailors were kindly birds, who never failed to have a pair of trousers or something up their sleeve to present to the deserving. There was the drawback, of course, that once they had given you things, they were apt to write you a rather lot of letters about it. But you soon managed to recognize their handwriting, and then it was a simple task to extract their communications from your morning mail and drop them in the wastepaper basket. This was the first case he had encountered of a man who was really short of clothes. "My dear old lad," he said briskly, "this must be remedied. Oh, positively! This must be remedied at once. I suppose my things wouldn't fit you? No? Well, I'll tell you what. We'll wangle something from my father-in-law. Old Brewster, you know, the fellow who runs the Cosmopolis. His'll fit you like the paper on the wall, because he's a tubby little blighter too. What I mean to say is, he's also one of those sturdy, square, fine-looking chappies of about the middle height. By the way, where are you stopping these days?" "Nowhere, just at present. I thought of taking one of those self-contained park benches." "Are you broke?" "Am I?" Archie was concerned. "You ought to get a job." "I ought, but somehow I don't seem able to." "What did you do before the war?" "I've forgotten." "Forgotten?" "Forgotten." "How do you mean forgotten? You can't mean forgotten." "Yes, it's quite gone." "But I mean to say, you can't have forgotten a thing like that." "Can't I? I've forgotten all sorts of things. Where I was born, how old I am, whether I'm married or single, what my name is." "Well, I'm dashed," said Archie, staggered. "But you remembered about giving me a bit of sausage outside Saint-Miel?" "No, I didn't. I'm taking your word for it. For all I know, you may be luring me into some den to rob me of my straw hat. I don't know you from Adam, but I like your conversation, especially the part about eating, and I'm taking a chance." Archie was concerned. "Listen, old bean, make an effort. You must remember that sausage episode. It was just outside Saint-Miel, about 5 in the evening. Your little lot were lying next to my little lot, and we happened to meet, and I said, 'What ho?' And you said, 'Hello.' And I said, 'What ho, what ho?' And you said, 'Have a bit of sausage?' And I said, 'What ho? What ho, what ho?'" "The dialogue seems to have been darn sparkling, but I don't remember it. It must have been after that I stopped one. I don't seem quite to have caught up with myself since I got hit." "Oh, that's how you got that scar?" "No. I got that jumping through a plate-glass window in London on Armistice night." "What on earth did you do that for?" "Oh, I don't know. It seemed like a good idea at the time."
"Well, if you can remember a thing like that, why can't you remember your name?"
"I remember everything that happened after I came out of hospital. It's the part before that's gone."
Archie patted him on the shoulder. "I know just what you want. You need a bit of quiet and repose, to think things over and so forth. You mustn't go sleeping on park benches. Won't do at all. Not a bit like it. You must shift to the Cosmopolis. It isn't half a bad spot, the old Cosmop. I didn't like it much the first night I was there, because there was a dashed tap that went drip, drip, drip all night and kept me awake, but the place has its points.
Is the Cosmopolis giving free board and lodging these days?
Rather. That'll be all right. Well, this is the spot. We'll start by trickling up to the old boy's suite and looking over his reach-me-downs. I know the waiter on his floor. A very sound chappie. He'll let us in with his passkey. And so it came about that Mr. Daniel Brewster, returning to his suite in the middle of lunch in order to find a paper dealing with a subject he was discussing with his guest, the architect of his new hotel, was aware of a murmur of voices behind the closed door of his bedroom. Recognizing the accents of his son-in-law, he breathed an oath and charged in. He objected to Archie wandering at large about his suite. The sight that met his eyes when he opened the door did nothing to soothe him. The floor was a sea of clothes. There were coats on chairs, trousers on the bed, shirts on the bookshelf, and in the middle of this welter stood Archie, with a man who, to Mr. Brewster's heated eye, looked like a tramp comedian out of a burlesque show.
"Great Godfrey!"
ejaculated Mr. Brewster. Archie looked up with a friendly smile. "Oh, hello, hello," he said affably. "We were just glancing through your sparse scenery to see if we couldn't find something for my pal here. This is Mr. Brewster, my father-in-law, old man." Archie scanned his relative's twisted features. Something in his expression seemed not altogether encouraging. He decided that the negotiation had better be conducted in private. "One moment, old lad," he said to his new friend. "I just want to have a little talk with my father-in-law in the other room. Just a little friendly business chat. You stay here." In the other room, Mr. Brewster turned on Archie like a wounded lion of the desert.
"What the—"
Archie secured one of his coat buttons and began to massage it affectionately. "Ought to have explained," said Archie. "Only didn't want to interrupt your lunch. The sportsman on the horizon is a dear old pal of mine." Mr. Brewster wrenched himself free.
"What the devil do you mean, you worm, by bringing tramps into my bedroom and messing about with my clothes?"
"That's just what I'm trying to explain, if you'll only listen. This bird is a bird I met in France during the war. He gave me a bit of sausage outside Saint-Mihiel."
"Damn you and him and the sausage!"
"Absolutely, but listen. He can't remember who he is, or where he was born, or what his name is. And he's broke. So, dash it, I must look after him. You see, he gave me a bit of sausage." Mr. Brewster's frenzy gave way to an ominous calm.
"I'll give him 2 seconds to clear out of here. If he isn't gone by then, I'll have him thrown out."
Archie was shocked. "You don't mean that?"
"I do mean that."
"But where is he to go?"
"Outside."
"But you don't understand. This chappie has lost his memory because he was wounded in the war. Keep that fact firmly in the old bean. He fought for you. Fought and bled for you. Bled profusely, by Jove. And he saved my life."
"If I'd got nothing else against him, that would be enough."
"But you can't sling a chappie out into the cold, hard world who bled in gallons to make the world safe for Hotel Cosmopolis." Mr. Brewster looked ostentatiously at his watch.
2 seconds, he said.
There was silence. Archie appeared to be thinking. "Right-ho," he said at last. "No need to get the wind up. I know where he can go. It's just occurred to me that I'll put him up at my little shop." The purple ebbed from Mr. Brewster's face. Such was his emotion that he had forgotten that infernal shop. He sat down. There was more silence.
"Oh, gosh," said Mr. Brewster.
"I knew you would be reasonable about it," said Archie approvingly. "Now, honestly, as man to man, how do we go?"
"What do you want me to do?"
growled Mr. Brewster. "I thought you might put the chappie up for a while and give him a chance to look round and nose about a bit."
"I absolutely refuse to give any more loafers free board and lodging."
"Any more?"
"Well, he would be the second, wouldn't he?"
Archie looked pained. "It's true," he said, "that when I first came here, I was temporarily resting, so to speak. But didn't I go right out and grab the managership of your new hotel? Positively.
I will not adopt this tramp.
Well, find him a job then.
What sort of a job?
Oh, any old sort.
He can be a waiter, if he likes.
All right, I'll put the matter before him.
He returned to the bedroom. The sausage chappie was gazing fondly into the mirror with a spotted tie draped round his neck.
I say, old top, said Archie apologetically, the Emperor of the Blighters out yonder says you can have a job here as waiter, and he won't do another dashed thing for you. How about it?
Do waiters eat?
I suppose so. Though, by Jove, come to think of it, I've never seen one at it.
That's good enough for me, said the sausage chappie. When do I begin? Chapter 19. Reggie Comes to Life. The advantage of having plenty of time on one's hands is that one has leisure to attend to the affairs of all one's circle of friends, and Archie, assiduously as he watched over the destinies of the sausage chappie, did not neglect the romantic needs of his brother-in-law Bill. A few days later, Lucille, returning one morning to their mutual suite, found her husband seated in an upright chair at the table, an unusually stern expression on his amiable face. A large cigar was in the corner of his mouth. The fingers of one hand rested in the armhole of his waistcoat. With the other hand, he tapped menacingly on the table. As she gazed upon him, wondering what could be the matter with him, Lucille was suddenly aware of Bill's presence. He had emerged sharply from the bedroom and was walking briskly across the floor. He came to a halt in front of the table. "Father," said Bill. Archie looked up sharply, frowning heavily over his cigar. "Well, my boy," he said in a strange, rasping voice. "What is it? Speak up, my boy, speak up. Why the devil can't you speak up? This is my busy day." "What on earth are you doing?" asked Lucille. Archie waved her away with the large gesture of a man of blood and iron, interrupted while concentrating. "Leave us, woman. We would be alone. Retire into the jolly old background and amuse yourself for a bit. Read a book. Do acrostics. Charge ahead, laddie." "Father," said Bill again. "Yes, my boy, yes. What is it?" "Father." Archie picked up the red-covered volume that lay on the table. "Half a mo, old son. Sorry to stop you, but I knew there was something. I've just remembered. Your walk. All wrong." "All wrong?" "All wrong. Where's the chapter on the art of walking? Here we are. Listen, dear old soul, drink this in. In walking, one should strive to acquire that swinging, easy movement from the hips. The correctly poised walker seems to float along, as it were. Now, old bean, you didn't float a damn bit. You just galloped in like a chappie charging into a railway restaurant for a bowl of soup and his train leaves in 2 minutes. Dashed important, this walking business, you know. Get it started wrong, and where are you? Try it again. Much better." He turned to Lucille. "Notice him float along that time? Absolutely skimmed, what?" Lucille had taken a seat and was waiting for enlightenment. "Are you and Bill going into vaudeville?" she asked. Archie, scrutinizing his brother-in-law closely, had further criticism to make. "The man of self-respect and self-confidence," he read, "stands erect in an easy, natural, graceful attitude. Heels not too far apart, head erect, eyes to the front with a level gaze. Get your gaze level, old thing. Shoulders thrown back, arms hanging naturally at the sides when not otherwise employed. That means that if he tries to hit you, it's all right to guard. Chest expanded naturally and abdomen— this is no place for you, Lucille. Leg it out of earshot. What I said before. Drawn in somewhat, and above all not protruded. Now, have you got all that? Yes, you look all right. Carry on, laddie, carry on. Let's have 2 pen'worth of dynamic voice and the tone of authority. Some of the full, rich, round stuff we hear so much about." Bill fastened a gimlet eye upon his brother-in-law and drew a deep breath. "Father," he said. "Father!" "You'll have to brighten up Bill's dialogue a lot," said Lucille critically, "or you will never get bookings." "Father!" "I mean, it's all right as far as it goes, but it's sort of monotonous.
Besides, one of you ought to be asking questions and the other answering. Bill ought to be saying, "Who is the lady I saw you coming down the street with?" So that you would be able to say, "That wasn't a lady, that was my wife." I know, I've been to lots of vaudeville shows. Bill relaxed his attitude. He deflated his chest, spread his heels, and ceased to draw in his abdomen. "We'd better try this another time when we're alone," he said frigidly. "I can't do myself justice." "Why do you want to do yourself justice?" asked Lucille. "Righto," said Archie, affably, casting off his forbidding expression like a garment. "Rehearsal postponed. I was just putting old Bill through it," he explained, "with a view to getting him into mid-season form for the jolly old pater." "Oh." Lucille's voice was the voice of one who sees light in darkness. "When Bill walked in like a cat on hot bricks and stood there looking stuffed, that was just the personality that wins. That was it." "Well, you couldn't blame me for not recognizing it, could you?" Archie patted her head paternally. "A little less of the caustic critic stuff," he said. "Bill will be all right on the night. If you hadn't come in and then put him off his stroke, he'd have shot out some amazing stuff, full of authority and dynamic accents and what-not. I tell you, light of my soul, old Bill is all right. He's got the winning personality up a tree, ready whenever he wants to go and get it. Speaking as his backer and trainer, I think he'll twist your father round his little finger. Absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me if at the end of 5 minutes the good old dad started jumping through hoops and sitting up for lumps of sugar." "It would surprise me? Ah, that's because you haven't seen old Bill in action. You crabbed his act before he had begun to spread himself." "It isn't that at all. The reason why I think that Bill, however winning his personality may be, won't persuade father to let him marry a girl in the chorus is something that happened last night." "Last night?" "Well, at 3 o'clock this morning. It's on the front page of the early editions of the evening papers. I brought one in for you to see, only you were so busy. Look, there it is." Archie seized the paper. "Oh, great Scott!" "What is it?" asked Bill irritably. "Don't stand goggling there. What the devil is it?" "Listen to this old thing. Revelry by night. Spirited battle royal at Hotel Cosmopolis. The hotel detective had a good heart, but Pauline packed the punch. The logical contender for Jack Dempsey's championship honours has been discovered, and in an age where women are stealing men's jobs all the time, it will not come as a surprise to our readers to learn that she belongs to the sex that is more deadly than the male. Her name is Miss Pauline Preston, and her wallop is vouched for under oath, under many oaths, by Mr. Timothy O'Neill, known to his intimates as Pie-Face, who holds down the arduous job of detective at the Hotel Cosmopolis. At 3 o'clock this morning, Mr. O'Neill was advised by the night clerk that the occupants of every room within earshot of number 618 had phoned the desk to complain of a disturbance, a noise, a vocal uproar proceeding from the room mentioned. Thither, therefore, marched Mr. O'Neill, his face full of cheese sandwich, for he had been indulging in an early breakfast or a late supper, and his heart of devotion to duty. He found there the Misses Pauline Preston and Bobby St. Clair, of the personnel in the chorus of the Frivolities, entertaining a few friends of either sex. A pleasant time was being had by all, and at the moment of Mr. O'Neill's entry, the entire strength of the company was rendering with considerable emphasis that touching ballad, "There's a place for me in heaven, for my baby boy is there." The able and efficient officer at once suggested that there was a place for them in the street, and the patrol wagon was there, and being a man of action as well as words, proceeded to gather up an armful of assorted guests as a preliminary to a personally conducted tour onto the cold night. It was at this point that Miss Preston stepped into the limelight. Mr. O'Neill contends that she hit him with a brick, an iron casing, and the Singer building. Be that as it may, her efforts were sufficiently able to induce him to retire for reinforcements, which, arriving, arrested the supper party regardless of age or sex. At the police court this morning, Miss Preston maintained that she and her friends were merely having a quiet home evening and that Mr. O'Neill was no gentleman. The male guests gave their names respectively as Woodrow Wilson, David Lloyd George, and William J. Bryan. These, however, are believed to be incorrect. But the moral is, if you want excitement rather than sleep, stay at the Hotel Cosmopolis." Bill may have quaked inwardly as he listened to this epic, but outwardly he was unmoved. "Well," he said, "what about it?" "What about it?" said Lucille. "What about it?" said Archie. "Why, my dear old friend, it simply means that all the time we've been putting in making your personality winning has been chucked away. Absolutely a dead loss. We might just as well have read a manual on how to knit sweaters." "I don't see it," maintained Bill stoutly. Lucille turned apologetically to her husband. "You mustn't judge me by him, Archie, darling. This sort of thing doesn't run in the family. We are supposed to be rather bright on the whole. But poor Bill was dropped by his nurse when he was a baby and fell on his head." "I suppose what you're driving at," said the goaded Bill, "is that what has happened will make Father pretty sore against girls who happen to be in the chorus?" "That's absolutely it, old thing. I'm sorry to say. The next person who mentions the word chorus girl in the jolly old governor's presence is going to take his life in his hands. I tell you, as one man to another, that I'd much rather be back in France, hopping over the top, than do it myself." "What darned nonsense. Mabel may be in the chorus, but she isn't like those girls." "Poor old Bill," said Lucille. "I'm awfully sorry, but it's no use not facing facts. You know perfectly well that the reputation of the hotel is the thing Father cares more about than anything else in the world, and that this is going to make him furious with all chorus girls in creation. It's no good trying to explain to him that your Maybelle is in the chorus but not of the chorus, so to speak." "Deuced well put," said Archie approvingly. "You're absolutely right. A chorus girl by the river's brim, so to speak. A simple chorus girl is to him, as it were, and she is nothing more, if you know what I mean." "So now," said Lucille, "having shown you that the imbecile scheme which you concocted with my poor, well-meaning husband is no good at all, I will bring you words of cheer. Your original plan, of getting your Maybelle a part in a comedy, was always the best one, and you can do it. I wouldn't have broken the bad news so abruptly if I hadn't had some consolation to give you afterwards. I met Reggie Van Tuyl just now, wandering about as if the cares of the world were on his shoulders, and he told me that he was putting up most of the money for a new play that's going into rehearsal right away. Reggie's an old friend of yours. All you have to do is to go to him and ask him to use his influence to get your Maybelle a small part. There's sure to be a maid or something with only a line or two that won't matter." "A ripe scheme," said Archie. "Very sound and fruity." The cloud did not lift from Bill's corrugated brow. "That's all very well," he said. "But you know what a talker Reggie is. He's an obliging sort of chump, but his tongue's fastened on at the middle and waggles at both ends. I don't want the whole of New York to know about my engagement and have somebody spilling the news to Father before I'm ready." "That's all right," said Lucille. "Archie can speak to him. There's no need for him to mention your name at all. He can just say there's a girl he wants to get a part for. You would do it, wouldn't you, Angel Face? Like a bird, queen of my soul. Then that's splendid. You'd better give Archie that photograph of Maybelle to give to Reggie, Bill." "Photograph?" said Bill. "Which photograph? I have 24. Archie found Reggie Van Tuyl brooding in a window of his club that looked over Fifth Avenue. Reggie was a rather melancholy young man who suffered from elephantiasis of the bankroll and the other evils that arise from that complaint. Gentle and sentimental by nature, his sensibilities had been much wounded by contact with the sordid world, and the thing that had first endeared Archie to him was the fact that the latter, though chronically hard up, had never made any attempt to borrow money from him. Reggie would have parted with it on demand, but it had delighted him to find that Archie seemed to take a pleasure in his society without having any ulterior motives. He was fond of Archie, and also of Lucille, and their happy marriage was a constant source of gratification to him. For Reggie was a sentimentalist. He would have liked to have lived in a world of ideally united couples, himself ideally united to some charming and affectionate girl. But as a matter of cold fact, he was a bachelor, and most of the couples he knew were veterans of several divorces. In Reggie's circle, therefore, The home life of Archie and Lucille shone like a good deed in a naughty world. It inspired him. In moments of depression, it restored his waning faith in human nature. Consequently, when Archie, having greeted him and slipped into a chair at his side, suddenly produced from his inside pocket the photograph of an extremely pretty girl and asked him to get her a small part in the play which he was financing, he was shocked and disappointed. He was in a more than usually sentimental mood that afternoon, and had indeed, at the moment of Archie's arrival, been dreaming wistfully of soft arms clasped snugly about his collar, and the patter of little feet and all that sort of thing. He gazed reproachfully at Archie. "Archie?" His voice quivered with emotion. "Is it worth it? Is it worth it, old man? Think of the poor little woman at home." Archie was puzzled. "Eh, old top? Which poor little woman?" "Think of her trust in you, her faith." "I don't absolutely get you, old bean." "What would Lucille say if she knew about this?" "Oh, she does. She knows all about it." "Good heavens!" cried Reggie. He was shocked to the core of his being. One of the articles of his faith was that the union of Lucille and Archie was different from those loose partnerships which were the custom in his world. He had not been conscious of such a poignant feeling that the foundations of the universe were cracked and tottering, and that there was no light and sweetness in life since the morning, 18 months back, when a negligent valet had sent him out into Fifth Avenue with only one spat on. "It was Lucille's idea," explained Archie. He was about to mention his brother-in-law's connection with the matter, but checked himself in time, remembering Bill's specific objection to having his secret revealed to Reggie. "It's like this, old thing. I've never met this female, but she's a pal of Lucille's." He comforted his conscience by the reflection that, if she wasn't now, she would be in a few days. "And Lucille wants to do her a bit of good. She's been on the stage in England, you know, supporting a jolly old widowed mother and educating a little brother and all that kind of species of rot, you understand. And now she's coming over to America, and Lucille wants you to rally round and shove her into your show and generally keep the home fires burning and so forth. How do we go?" Reggie beamed with relief. He felt just as if he had felt on that other occasion at the moment when a taxicab had rolled up and enabled him to hide his spatless leg from the public gaze. "Oh, I see," he said. "Why, delighted, old man, quite delighted. Any small part would do. Isn't there a maid or something in your bob's worth of refined entertainment who drifts about saying, 'Yes, madam,' and all that sort of thing? Well, that's just the thing. Topping. I knew I could rely on you, old bird. I'll get Lucille to ship her round to your address when she arrives. I fancy she's due to totter in somewhere in the next few days. Well, I must be popping. Toodaloo." "Pip, pip," said Reggie. It was about a week later that Lucille came into the suite at the Hotel Cosmopolis that was her home, and found Archie lying on the couch, smoking a refreshing pipe after the labours of the day. It seemed to Archie that his wife was not in her usual cheerful frame of mind. He kissed her, and having relieved her of her parasol, endeavoured without success to balance it on his chin. Having picked it up from the floor and placed it on the table, he became aware that Lucille was looking at him in a despondent sort of way. Her grey eyes were clouded. "Hello, old thing," said Archie. "What's up?" Lucille sighed wearily. "Archie, darling, do you know any really good swear words?" "Well," said Archie reflectively, "let me see. I did pick up a few tolerably ripe and breezy expressions out in France. All through my military career there was something about me, some subtle magnetism, don't you know, and all that sort of thing, that seemed to make colonels and blighters of that order rather inventive. I sort of inspired them, don't you know. I remember one brass hat addressing me for quite 10 minutes, saying something new all the time, and even then he seemed to think he had only touched the fringe of the subject. As a matter of fact, he said straight out in the most frank and confiding way that mere words couldn't do justice to me. But why? Because I want to relieve my feelings. Anything wrong? Everything's wrong. I've just been having tea with Bill and his Mabel." "Oh, ah," said Archie, interested. "And what's the verdict?" "Guilty," said Lucille. And the sentence, if I had anything to do with it, would be transportation for life. She peeled off her gloves irritably. What fools men are! Not you, precious. You're the only man in the world that isn't, it seems to me. You did marry a nice girl, didn't you? You didn't go running around after females with crimson hair, goggling at them with your eyes popping out of your head like a bulldog waiting for a bone. Oh, I say, does old Bill look like that? Worse! Archie rose to a point of order. But one moment, old lady. You speak of crimson hair. Surely old Bill, in the extremely jolly monologues he used to deliver whenever I didn't see him coming and he got me alone, used to allude to her hair as brown. It isn't brown now. It's bright scarlet. Good gracious, I ought to know. I've been looking at it all the afternoon. It dazzled me. If I've got to meet her again, I mean to go to the oculist's and get a pair of those smoked glasses you wear at Palm Beach. Lucille brooded silently for a while over the tragedy. I don't want to say anything against her, of course. No, of course not. But of all the awful, second-rate girls I ever met, she's the worst. She has vermilion hair and an imitation Oxford manner. She's so horribly refined that it's dreadful to listen to her. She's a sly, creepy, slinky, made-up, insincere vampire. She's common. She's awful. She's a cat. You're quite right not to say anything against her, said Archie approvingly. It begins to look, he went on, as if the good old pater was about due for another shock. He has a hard life. If Bill dares to introduce that girl to Father, he's taking his life in his hands. But surely that was the idea, the scheme, the wheeze, wasn't it? Or do you think there's any chance of his weakening? Weakening? You should have seen him looking at her. It was like a small boy flattening his nose against the window of a candy store. Bit thick. Lucille kicked the leg of the table. And to think, she said, that when I was a little girl, I used to look up to Bill as a monument of wisdom. I used to hug his knees and gaze into his face and wonder how anyone could be so magnificent. She gave the unoffending table another kick. If I could have looked into the future, she said with feeling, I'd have bitten him in the ankle. In the days which followed, Archie found himself a little out of touch with Bill and his romance. Lucille referred to the matter only when he brought the subject up, and made it plain that the topic of her future sister-in-law was not one which she enjoyed discussing. Mr. Brewster Sr., when Archie, by way of delicately preparing his mind for what was about to befall, asked him if he liked red hair, called him a fool, and told him to go away and bother someone else when they were busy. The only person who could have kept him thoroughly abreast of the trend of affairs was Bill himself, and experience had made Archie wary in the matter of meeting Bill. The position of confidant to a young man in the early stages of love is no sinecure, and it made Archie sleepy even to think of having to talk to his brother-in-law. He sedulously avoided his love-lorn relative, and it was with a sinking feeling one day that, looking over his shoulder as he sat in the Cosmopolis grill-room, preparatory to ordering lunch, he perceived Bill bearing down upon him, obviously resolved upon joining his meal. To his surprise, however, Bill did not instantly embark upon his usual monologue. Indeed, he hardly spoke at all. He champed a chop, and seemed to Archie to avoid his eye. It was not till lunch was over, and they were smoking, that he unburdened himself. "Archie," he said. "Hello, old thing," said Archie. "Still there? I thought you'd died or something. Talk about our old pals Tongue-Tied Thomas and Silent Sammy. You could beat 'em both on the same evening." "It's enough to make me silent." "What is?" Bill had relapsed into a sort of waking dream. He sat frowning somberly, lost to the world. Archie, having waited what seemed to him a sufficient length of time for an answer to his question, bent forward and touched his brother-in-law's hand gently with the lighted end of his cigar. Bill came to himself with a howl. "What is?" said Archie. "What is what?" said Bill. "Now listen, old thing," protested Archie. "Life is short and time is flying. Suppose we cut out the crosstalk. You hinted there was something on your mind, something worrying the old bean, and I'm waiting to hear what it is." Bill fiddled a moment with his coffee spoon. "I'm in an awful hole," he said at last. What's the trouble?
It's about that darned girl.
Archie blinked. What?
That darned girl!
Archie could scarcely credit his senses. He had been prepared, indeed he had steeled himself, to hear Bill allude to his affinity in a number of ways, but that darned girl was not one of them. "Companion of my riper years," he said, "let's get this thing straight. When you say that darned girl, do you by any possibility allude to—"
"Of course I do."
"But William, old bird—"
I know, said Bill irritably. "You're surprised to hear me talk like that about her."
"A trifle, yes, possibly a trifle. When last heard from, laddie, you must recollect you were speaking of the lady as your soul-mate, and at least once, if I remember rightly, you alluded to her as your little dusky-haired lamb." A sharp howl escaped Bill.
"Don't!"
A strong shudder convulsed his frame.
"Don't remind me of it."
"There's been a species of slump, then, in dusky-haired lambs?"
"How?" demanded Bill, savagely. "Can a girl be a dusky-haired lamb when her hair's bright scarlet?"
"Dash difficult," admitted Archie.
"I suppose Lucille told you about that?"
"She did touch on it, lightly as it were, with a sort of gossamer touch, so to speak." Bill threw off the last fragments of reserve.
"Archie, I'm in the devil of a fix. I don't know why it was, but directly I saw her, things seemed so different over in England, I mean." He swallowed ice water in gulps. "I suppose it was seeing her with Lucille. Old Lou is such a thoroughbred. Seemed to kind of show her up, like seeing imitation pearls by the side of real pearls. And that crimson hair, it sort of put the lid on it." Bill brooded morosely. "It ought to be a criminal offense for women to dye her hair, especially red. What the devil do women do that sort of thing for?" "Don't blame me, old thing. It's not my fault." Bill looked furtive and harassed. "It makes me feel such a cad. Here am I feeling that I would give all I've got in the world to get out of the darned thing, and all the time the poor girl seems to be getting fonder of me than ever." "How do you know?" Archie surveyed his brother-in-law critically. "Perhaps her feelings have changed too. Very possibly she may not like the colour of your hair. I don't myself. Now, if you were to dye yourself crimson—" "Oh, shut up. Of course a man knows when a girl's fond of him."
"By no means, laddie. When you're my age—"
"I am your age."
"So you are. I forgot that. Well, now, approaching the matter from another angle, let us suppose, old son, that Miss—what's-her-name, the party of the second part—"
"Stop it,"
said Bill suddenly.
"Here comes Reggie."
"Eh?"
"Here comes Reggie Van Tool. I don't want him to hear us talking about the darned thing."
Archie looked over his shoulder and perceived that it was indeed so. Reggie was threading his way among the tables.
"Well, he looks pleased with things anyway," said Bill enviously. "Glad someone's happy."
He was right. Reggie Van Tool's usual mode of progress through a restaurant was a somnolent slouch. Now he was positively bounding along. Furthermore, the usual expression on Reggie's face was a sleepy sadness. Now he smiled brightly and with animation. He curveted towards their table, beaming and erect, his head up, his gaze level, and his chest expanded, for all the world as if he had been reading the hints in The Personality That Wins. Archie was puzzled. Something had plainly happened to Reggie, but what? It was idle to suppose that somebody had left him money, for he had been left practically all the money there was a matter of 10 years before. "Hello, old bean," he said, as the newcomer, radiating goodwill and bonhomie, arrived at the table and hung over it like a noonday sun. "We've finished, but rally round and we'll watch you eat. Dashed interesting, watching old Reggie eat. Why go to the zoo?" Reggie shook his head. "Sorry, old man. Can't. Just on my way to the Ritz. Stepped in because I thought you might be here. I wanted you to be the first to hear the news." "News? I'm the happiest man alive." "You look it, darn you," growled Bill, on whose mood of grey gloom this human sunbeam was jarring heavily. "I'm engaged to be married." "Congratulations, old egg." Archie shook his hand cordially. "Dash it, don't you know, as an old married man, I like to see you young fellows settling down." "I don't know how to thank you enough, Archie, old man," said Reggie fervently. Thank me? It was through you that I met her. Don't you remember the girl you sent to me? You wanted me to get her a small part?" He stopped, puzzled. Archie had uttered a sound that was half gasp and half gurgle, but it was swallowed up in the extraordinary noise from the other side of the table. Bill Brewster was leaning forward with bulging eyes and soaring eyebrows. "Are you engaged to Mabel Winchester?" "Why, by George," said Reggie. "Do you know her?" Archie recovered himself. "Slightly," he said. "Slightly. Old Bill knows her slightly, as it were. Not very well, don't you know? But, how shall we put it?" "Slightly," suggested Bill. "Just the word, slightly." "Splendid," said Reggie Van Tool. "Why don't you come along to the Ritz and meet her now?" Bill stammered. Archie came to the rescue again. "Bill can't come now. He's got a date." "A date?" said Bill. "A date," said Archie. "An appointment, don't you know? In fact, a date." "But, wish her happiness from me," said Bill cordially. "Thanks very much, old man," said Reggie. "And say I'm delighted, will you?" "Certainly." "You won't forget the word, will you? Delighted." "Delighted." "That's right. Delighted." Reggie looked at his watch. "Hello, I must rush." Bill and Archie watched him as he bounded out of the restaurant. "Poor old Reggie," said Bill with a fleeting compunction. "Not necessarily," said Archie. "What I mean to say is, tastes differ, don't you know? One man's peach is another man's poison, and vice versa." "There's something in that." "Absolutely." "Well," said Archie judiciously, "this would appear to be, as it were, the maddest, merriest day in all the glad new year, yes? No?" Bill drew a deep breath. "You bet your sorrowful existence it is," he said. "I'd like to do something to celebrate it." "The right spirit," said Archie. "Absolutely the right spirit. Begin by paying for my lunch." This is B.J. Harrison. I hope you've enjoyed this unabridged production of Indiscretions of Archie, Part 6 of 8 by P.G. Wodehouse. If you've enjoyed this book, you may also enjoy Love Among the Chickens, also by P.G. Wodehouse and Right Ho Jeeves. You can find these and other Classic Tales audiobooks at our website, classictalesaudiobooks.com. Thank you for joining me today and allowing classic literature to awaken your better self. Please join me next time, and we'll rediscover the greatest stories ever put to paper.